Hey folks, it's Jang here from UltimateRC.com with a review of a crawler. This is the R1 Rock Buggy from Gmade. You can find this for about $250 to $270 US, and I got this one from rcrun.com. It comes as a fully unassembled kit, or you can pay a little bit more for a pre-built one. And I have all of the build videos for this kit you're looking at right here already up on my channel. Now I'm going to be blunt here. The main selling point of the Gmade R1 is its appearance. The nylon tube frame just looks sick. You'll be hard-pressed to find anything else like it on the market. Now, they don't push this as a 2.2 class competition crawler. It's more of just a go-anywhere, do-anything rock racer. Now, of course, it has solid axles, front and rear, and it does have 4-linked suspension with heavy-duty aluminum links included, although the lower links really aren't triangulated much at all. They're almost parallel. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. The steering linkages are super thick 4mm steel units, and that shiny chrome-covered diff case is actually real steel underneath. Now, one of the most cool features about the R1 is not apparent until you look really closely out towards the ends of the axles. They actually have portal axles. You'll notice that the middle of the axles are higher than where the outdrives to the wheels are. A couple extra gears in there gives you a little extra clearance. Each shock absorber is built with 2 internal springs, one above and one below the piston, and you can choose which one you put in which place to go between either sprung or droop suspension style. Building these shocks fully oil-filled, though, is a major pain. Save yourself from tearing your hair out and use just enough oil to lubricate the shafts. 3-piece plastic bead locks are included, and as you can see, it uses Phillips head screws, something that most modelers don't want these days. Almost all of the hardware throughout the entire kit has Phillips heads. The included tires have foam inserts, and the compound of the rubber is moderately soft, but the design of the tread doesn't give you a lot of compliance, and the rubber itself is not very sticky. Now, just putting around on random terrain with the R1 in pretty much stock configuration is plenty of fun. It does a good job of keeping its wheels on the ground and has good compliance over rough terrain as long as you have at least one end of the vehicle set up with the sprung style of shocks. Now, you may notice that my rear tires are facing the opposite direction of the fronts. I tried all permutations of this and found that the tires worked best when they're in their rearward configuration, like my rears are here. But even at their best, they're still not that good. They're fine for light-duty bashing, and as long as you stay fairly horizontal with them, it's pretty good. They're also pretty good over grass like this because they are wide and they don't have deep tread, so they will kind of float over it. But once you get into any sort of steep incline, you really lose traction quickly. To properly test out the capabilities of the R1 chassis on the rocks, I had to upgrade those tires pretty quickly. Here I'm running J-Concepts Rock X tires on J-Concepts Tense wheels. I've also put plenty of lead weights in the wheels for a lower center of gravity and to increase overall traction. For this field of random jagged rocks, I tried both a half-sprung, half-droop setup with the droop side up towards the front and full sprung all the way around. Full sprung definitely worked out better by giving me more overall center clearance. Now, the downside to going that route is that it raises your center of gravity. Now, if you've never driven an actual crawler before, you would probably find this experience to be downright awesome. The R1 has plenty of articulation and a good amount of clearance underneath of it. However, I've seen comp crawlers up close, and I've driven a handful of other solid axle vehicles. To be honest with you, the R1's performance wasn't feeling all that great. The biggest problem for me is the steering radius, which is really poor. I don't know what all contributes to that, but I did notice that it seems to have a little bit of negative Ackerman, where the outside tire actually turns in more than the inside tire. I had to use reverse a lot more than I wanted to. The other issue is that the axles didn't feel like they were really solidly located in reference to the chassis. Because the lower links are almost parallel to each other, you can grab the chassis and either axle and just scoot that axle back and forth, left and right, twist it all around. It just really doesn't stay in one location or pivoting around one fixed point. In really sticky situations, I could see the axles working against each other and moving every which way. To help address this problem, I got the Delrin upgrade center skid plate from rcrun.com. It's a little over 20 bucks, but it moves your lower inboard link mounts towards the center line of the chassis. That makes them actually triangulated the way that they should be. At that same time, I also got the bent option lower links, which give you a little bit more clearance when you're climbing straight over the peak of a rock. The bent links were nice and I could see where they were working, but the center skid and the geometry changes that it brought about, I could really feel. The entire vehicle just felt much more solid now, as if I had upgraded from a fully plastic chassis to a fully metal one. The biggest thing it did for me was just dramatically increase my confidence in the vehicle. I tried the R1 both before and after the upgrades on identical lines on a competition-style natural rock course, and there wasn't much of a noticeable difference in how well it was able to tackle individual obstacles. However, lining up to those obstacles and dealing with times where I got a little bit offline and needed to make corrections, well, that's where the changes really helped. Something pretty insulting happened out here though. I was able to take my axial wraith over these same obstacles much more easily, and I was able to attack more obstacles with the wraith than I was with the R1. The reason that's insulting is that my wraith is not set up for crawling, it's set up for high speed. It has a 4000 kV motor, reduced ride height, tires that are more for looks than performance, a big heavy full fendered body that raises the center of gravity significantly and has overhang problems, and the Wraith didn't have as much weight up front. But that's not the end of it. The R1 throughout my tests had a nagging and very consistent drivetrain issue. The yokes on the plastic center shafts would just pop right off if I put too much torque through them. Nothing actually broke, but I came to dread this sound. Shaft popper. Now, like I said, nothing actually breaks when this happens, and you can repair it in the field if you have with you a 1.5mm hex driver and a pair of needle nose pliers. But why should you have to? I believe you can fix that problem by upgrading to Traxxas T-Max 2.5 series axles, or you can spend about another 40 bucks on JuneFac upgrade steel center slider shafts with steel yokes, or you can end up doing what I did for the remainder of these tests and just drove really carefully. Personally, I'd rather not have to do any of the above. My Wraith didn't have this problem and I drove it way harder and with a much stronger motor. Summing things up, in kit stock form, I found the G-Made R1 rock buggy to be pretty mediocre. It needs some work and it needs some new parts. In all fairness though, I felt the same way about my axial Wraith. If you're looking for a competition crawler, this is not it. Ignore it, look elsewhere. You can pick up a XR10 kit for about 100 bucks less than this thing. If you're an average RCer and you're basically just a basher and you just want to drive around doing some rock racer sort of stuff with light duty crawling and a little bit of bashing on dirt surfaces and random terrain, then the R1 actually looks pretty interesting for its price, especially when you consider that something that's a competitor to it, the Axial Wraith kit, costs about 100 bucks more than this. I'd say the number one must-have upgrade for the R1 is that Delrin center skid, and of course kit-supplied tires are almost never good on any RC kits, so you want to consider replacing those as well. The wheels are perfectly fine, don't worry about those, but do add some lead weight to the front. Now where do I stand on my specific R1 rock buggy? Well, I'll tell you, I'm keeping it, man. Like I said up front, there's nothing else out there on the market that looks like this, and I just love that look. I'll do something to fix the center shaft problem. I'll probably replace those shocks with some plastic ones that are smoother and easier to work on. And I might even add some rear steer to help fix the steering radius problem. The biggest thing that I don't like about the R1 for myself is that it's really tough to work on it, at least anything other than the axles. That same awesome cage that I really can't do without also very much limits how much space you have for electronics. But hopefully I'll figure out a way to work around that too. Stay tuned for follow-up videos as I continue to modify this R1 rock buggy. Also, be sure, if you haven't already, to go back and check into the pure driving videos that I have of the R1 at its various stages along the way while I was testing it for this review. I've got a lot of footage with no 2-second edits and loud banging music to get in the way, so you can really see the actual driving experience of the R1 Rock Buggy, and hopefully that'll help you to decide whether you want to get one for yourself. So that's it from me for now. Thank you very much for watching this review video. If you have questions or comments about this vehicle or other rock crawlers and scalers, be sure to check out the appropriate threads or post up your own in the RC Rock Crawling and Scalers forum at ultimaterc.com. Be sure to watch your footing when you're out there on the rocks and have a lot of fun driving your RCs. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.